Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we discuss the Tudor Pelagos. This is the in-house caliber variant of the watch that launched at Bezel World in 2015. So the timepiece, 42 millimeters in titanium, is the full Tudor package. It's 14.5 millimeters thick. It's 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. It has a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The original Pelagos launched in 2012. In 2015, it got the Tudor MT5612 movement, but the look on the wrist was largely unchanged. This is the more modern of the two primary dive watch families from Tudor. So while it does have some vintage cues, particularly on the dial, this isn't the pure heritage play like the Black Bay. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see it's a sizable watch. It's not particularly thin, nor is it particularly thick, but for what it's worth, the original ETA version was far thinner. Now, from lug to lug, it's exactly 50 millimeters, which means you can fit this on a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. Any smaller, and you're going to want to get the Pelagos 39 or some version of the Black Bay 58. The watch is very light, though. Being all titanium, rubber, sapphire, and ceramic, it does sit lightly and easily on my wrist. Now, we have here a lovely Tudor strap, and it is blue vulcanized rubber with a matte finish, character lines molded onto the top. Take note, this is a brand new Tudor factory strap. We have a pin buckle with the Tudor Shield logo built into the end of the buckle structure. You can see it too is titanium with spring bar tool holes if you want to swap things up. Now, the watch features a gas escape valve and a 500-meter diving depth, which makes it a more hardcore alternative to the Black Bay, but also more capable than Rolex's own Submariner. I would actually draw comparisons to the Sea Dweller rather than the Sub. The case is grade 2 tie-in. You can see that it's all satinated, which should tip you off to the fact that it is grade 2. Remember, you can't polish grade 2, so full satin is always your cue. Helium escape valve on the flank, beautifully integrated. It's seamless, it's flush, you barely even notice it unless you need it. It will deploy internally when internal pressure exceeds external pressure by about 2 to 3 bar, and that's purely the result of gas building up, helium gas building up inside the watch if you are a saturation diver. No one else should need it, but it's a great piece for starting a conversation or securing bragging rights. Screw down crown. We have pointy guards. Remember, this watch does feature some homage references, and these are references to cases shared by Rolex and Tudor back when both made Submariners and both used the same case, the Rolex Oyster case. So we have these early 60s pointy guard style crown structures. We also have little bevels on the flank. Now, they're executed mechanically, but they pay tribute to that era when the Tudor and Rolex subs shared cases, and both of them featured hand-finished bevels. Bevels of any kind are long gone on the Sub and Sea Dweller, and while these are mechanically applied, they have a nice nostalgic value. We have a micro knurling to the bezel that's actually easier to grip than the knurling on a Submariner or a Sea Dweller. The main difference between the two is going to be that this features a fully loomed bezel insert in ceramic, but also that it is a 60-click bezel rather than the Rolex 120-click. We'll do a quick lineup with the minute hand. You can see we have the snowflake style dial with hands and layout that remind us of the late 60s to mid 70s Tudor Submariner snowflake dials. That's the most overtly retro part of the watch's design. In the dark, you'll appreciate that the entire bezel is luminescent, so it's much easier to precisely read the countdown function of the diving bezel. Remember, it's a unidirectional bezel, so you can shorten your dive, but you cannot extend your dive. This is great for timing intervals from 1 minute to 60. A lot of times, it's easier to read a dive bezel than chronograph subregisters, and I've always preferred a dive bezel over a chrono because it's easier to read, more intuitive, and doesn't have the downstream service costs. Now, this watch is not identical to any particular snowflake sub. So you can see there's a dramatic flange outboard which has been cut with a sawtooth profile to accommodate these applique indices. They're not printed features. They actually are little chunks with luminescence that are inserted onto the dial. It's all a matte blue to reduce reflection, and you can see the hand centers are blue to help the outer sections of the hand better stand out, appearing to float across the dial. Now, subsidiary setting modes we have here are pretty much the same that you'd find on a sub. We have a hacking seconds function, and we also have a quick set date. So the watch has all of the modern standards you would expect. Turn it all over, as with a Rolex Oyster case, there's just not that much to see, but it does give you the caliber number on the back. And back in 2015, that was big news, as the watch gained a new Tudor Kinesi in-house caliber. Now, I talked about that company, Kinesi. It does make movements for other brands, so you will see them on other brands of watches. But Kinesi is first and foremost a Rolex Tudor company in origin, so I always think of this as the primary application and everyone else as the customer for the caliber. Now, the watch has automatic winding, 70-hour power reserve, hacking seconds, the quick set date. It pivots on 26 joules. It beats at 8 beats per second. It is 5-position adjusted. The movement is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, and it has an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, a feature still rare on Rolex movements. And to brace against shock, it features a winding rotor ball bearing system and a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing details.